So, this week, we're talking about the execution gaps. What I call the execution gap. Basically, what it is you know what you need to do, right? But you're not getting it all done, right? And I kind of went backwards with that, but you understand. A reason we have a lot of that is self-accountability, I think, is probably first and foremost, but we'll get into that later. Second is we have to understand how to look at things that we execute, right? Because a lot of times what happens is we want to do one giant thing that'll give us credit for the week, right? Because we're humans, we're instant gratification, entities. So what happens is we get all this motivation worked up, and then boom, we do something huge. It takes like 4 or 5 hours to get done, and then we stop. Instead of doing smaller chunks of things that are actionable on a daily basis to encourage the habit of executing, right? Falling out of that habit, I think, is where a lot of people run into problems. So you have a research from the University of Scranton suggests that 92% of people who set goals never actually achieve them. Among entrepreneurs, this execution gap is the primary reason most ventures fail to reach their potential. The question isn't whether or not you have a good idea. It's whether or not the systems that you have supporting that idea, right, are built on reality, right? And a lot of times they're not, because a lot of times, again, this goes back to the first episode. We don't like to write things down. We like to take for granted that we can just execute it and be done with it, instead of understanding that the need to see something physically organized in front of us is so powerful that without it, we are far less likely to succeed in anything that we're doing, right? So, how do we kind of address that? So the execution gap has a lot of culprits, right? And I really think that the main one is lack of documentation, right? Because we tend to get wrapped up in documenting what happened at the end of the sale, right? Ledgering the money, sending the invoice, right? And a thank you letter, and boom, that's done, right? That's your documentation for your sale. If that's the case, you're missing out on a whole bunch of data that's going to make it easier for you to find sales again when you have a new product, right? And beyond that, I mean, it's really a clarity thing, right? If you don't have a clear idea of what it is that you're trying to accomplish or what you're trying to do, you're never going to do it, right? If you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you can't accomplish it. And I know there's been a lot of guys that I know who have fallen in this trap, myself included, where you have this great idea for a product, you have this great idea for a service, and you start executing all these things. And then all of a sudden, things become stagnant, right? Or if they even get off the ground at all. And then you go back and look, okay, so why did this not take off? Well, if you don't have a purpose behind what it is you're doing, then why are you doing it? Make sense? You have to have some kind of purpose behind doing it. And of course, myself, I'm very much into the helping others thing, right? Because I am who I am. I believe what I say I believe, and I think it's more important that we be helpful to one another than profitable to ourselves. You know what I mean? Not to say that money doesn't have its place, but because of course it does. Why else would we do this, right? Sorry, bear with me. But without the clarity of knowing why we're doing something, it becomes difficult for us to justify spending time doing it, right? Especially if it's not moving, if it's not growing or making progress or whatever. So in that, it becomes extremely important, again, to write down what it is you're trying to accomplish, or what it is your goal is for the part of the strategy you're in, right? Whether you're in, development phase or or you're in, materials development or whatever, testing, marketing, etc., etc. It's important to make sure that that idea is expressed clearly in your own mind, right? And you can't express something clearly in your, well, I shouldn't say that. Some people can. It's very rare, but some people can. For the rest of us for whom it's difficult to get our head wrapped around that, we have to have a physical representation of what it is that we're trying to do, right? Some kind of physical thing against which to judge our progress, which is why documentation becomes so important. Let me dry these hands off here real quick. Move up my thing here. So the documentation framework. So how do we use documentation to our advantage, right? Now, obviously, there's the outcome documentation that everybody likes, right? Ooh, there's money on the ledger. There are sales on the books. Everybody loves the feeling of it. I remember when I sold my first few T-shirts. Even it was family and friends who I sold them to, because that's kind of where you start most of the time. And God bless every single one of you who purchased a shirt for my fledgling music career. That probably isn't the best thing. Well, yeah, it's fine. It felt really good to see, in my money in my Square app. That was from something other than, me putting cash into it from shows or whatever. It was an extremely powerful feeling, of course. That's why we like it so much. And it is important, because obviously we need to know where the money goes. But it's only one part of the equation. We've got strategy documentation, right? Which is putting together the plan to spread the word, right? Or develop, put the product in development, or put it in testing, like I said. But whatever strategy you're using to get your product developed and to market, you have to have a documented strategy for it, because you'll never know where those milestones are. You'll never know whether or not you're even aiming at a milestone if you don't write the milestones down, right? Sorry. And of course, that's kind of your map on where to go. So I would venture to say it's probably one of the more important things that you should write down. And I should make a better habit of it myself. But without a strategy, without an actual, a plan, some kind of map as to what it is you're trying to do, then, like everything else, nothing gets done, right? Now, you've also got your tactical documentation. And this is execution stuff, right? This is the execution stuff that needs to get done in order for your business to move to the next step, right? It should be relatively detailed, all right? And those of you who like that excruciating detail kind of thing, this is going to be your perfect place for you. And those of you who don't like excruciating detail, find somebody that does and put them in the spot. These are your step-by-step plans. These are where you start to put together the building blocks of how your process works, going from idea to implementation and execution. This is that step-by-step process that you can hand to somebody and say, "Here, go make money." And it becomes powerful for you, because you can hand it to yourself and say, "Okay, go make money with something else," right? Just makes sense to have it. Your progress documentation, right? This is different than outcome documentation, right? The outcome documentation is what you're going to be evaluating for your progress, right? In one instance. Now, ideally you're going to have progress for all the other three, right? Your outcome, your strategy, and your tactical. You're going to want a progress documentation for all three of those, so you can track, okay, what's working, what's not working, where, what change happened here to make this happen. You can start to siphon through all that data and really focus in on where your efforts need to be spent. So, as you make progress, document what's going on, right? Some guys do it every week. Some guys do it every month. I would recommend at least every week, if not every month, just to make sure you have a constant handle on what's going on in your business. It just makes sense that way. If you don't have a handle on what's going on in your business, what are you doing, right? Right. So what can we do to implement this now, right? Well, like everything else, write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down. And you're going to be tired of hearing me say it, and forgive me for showing you my butt crack. You're going to be tired of hearing me say it, and that's fine. But I'm going to harp on it because I know it to be true. Write it down. Create a dedicated business journal. Get you a specific pad of paper, right? And not the notes in your phone, not the notes on your tablet. Get a physical journal, a physical paper thing, right? Even if you're no, you got to write it down. You got to put a pen to paper and write it down. If you're at a point where you're starting to question whether or not any of this is even making sense for you, and you haven't started writing things down, this is the time to do it. Start writing this stuff down. Create a dedicated journal that you can write in daily. This is what I did. This is how successful or unsuccessful it was. These are the people I called. These are the notes that I had from blah blah blah. Right? Take all that stuff down. I highly recommend it. Take all that stuff down that you can, and keep it separated so you can go back and look at that specific part of what's going on in your life. Establish a daily documentation ritual. I like to do my stuff late at night, right? That's just the kind of guy I am. That's how my brain works. So that's when I like to do it. Find a time and work it into your schedule. I recommend it either first thing in the morning or last thing at the end of the night. Whichever one, wherever you have more time. And yes, it's probably going to require you to, make a few extra minutes in your day, right? By waking up a little earlier, going to bed a little later, right? Carving out some little 30-minute to an hour-long section of time that you can, focus on something. And once you get that done, once you get that established, right, that pattern established, everything else will kind of be easier, so to speak. So I recommend starting with that. Figure out what time of the day you have to sit down and listen to this, or not listen to this stuff. What time of the day is best for you to sit down and focus on this stuff for a solid, 30 minutes to an hour. Just contemplative stuff I got to do, stuff I need to, stuff that I accomplished, stuff that I need to accomplish, people I need to call, whatever. Part of the strategy I need to execute, part of the tactical plan I need to execute. Make time to write down and review what you're writing down every day. Again, weekly reviews of even this stuff, right? Weekly reviews of this stuff. What did I do this week? How much did I get accomplished? This is where you're going to get that information on a personal level, not on a company level, right? This is your personal documentation for your journey, right? And for some people, this isn't necessarily the best method for getting some of this stuff out, right? I get it. Some people are better with voice notes, and I think with the advent of AI, it makes a lot of this stuff way easier. And I recommend taking advantage of those tools. But in the beginning, write it down. Get a piece of paper, get a pen, and write it down. So here's what we got. The 7-day documentation challenge. Here's what we're going to do. Just for you guys, okay? Because I know I need motivation, I need accountability a lot. So I'm gonna give you a little tidbit of accountability out here. So the next week, spend 15 minutes each morning or each night, all right, writing out your top 3 priorities for the day, right? Take 15 minutes, and this is what I'm saying. Find the time. 15 minutes is all you need for this particular exercise, right? Write down the top 3 things you need to get done. and be specific, like we talked in the first or second chapter, or the first or second episode, right? Be specific. Not I'm going to work on marketing. Not I'm going to work on blah blah blah. It's I'm going to execute A B C step for X Y Z purpose, right? That's how specific you need to be, and make it 3 things that you can do, right? That are actionable on a given day. At the end of the day, document what you accomplished. Right? So whether you write it down the night before to start with, or you write it down the morning of, right? The following evening, document what you accomplished, what you actually achieved. Review all the entries on the 7-day and identify patterns. Now this is where things get real cool. When you start identifying patterns, you can start chipping away at bad ones, right? And then reinforcing good ones. So this is where things get kind of hands-on. So my challenge to you is to start doing this stuff. If you haven't started documentation already, you need to start it. If you haven't written your ideas down yet, you need to do it now. Put a pen to paper, get this stuff out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Make your brain pull that switch, right? Make your brain pull that switch so that you can start to get your physical reality moving in the direction, okay? Now, more details on this, obviously, are available in the book. Write that down, which is available at Kindle and on the website, geteditpodcast.com. Come back every Wednesday for another episode of Let's Get At It podcast with new information, hopefully useful information. Please make sure you go by the website and download those PDFs, the workbook, and the cheat sheet for kind of an accountability daily. Well, actually, I think it's a 12-week checklist. Hold yourself accountable for something. It's free. Go get it. Please go get it. Go take it. Just put in the my PDFs. Promo code at checkout. When you put both those things in the cart, it'll zero both those things out to nothing. You can download them and take them with you wherever you want to go. Okay, go get them. I put them there to help. Beyond that, guys, as always, I appreciate y'all stopping by and taking a look, and I appreciate y'all putting up with me while I clean my kitchen and blog at the same time. I'm going to tell you, like I tell my kids, every episode I'm going to try to make this a thing. When you're out there, be helpful, be a leader, learn smart stuff. And if you can be here for this information on a weekly basis, get here. We'll see you next time.